friends! Today I'm going to be reviewing The Golem and the Jinni by Helene Wecker, published in 2013. Before I get into the actual review though, I have to gush about the design of this book. It is so beautiful and satisfying to hold. It has deckled edges and a striking cover with the blue and orange color scheme and the gilded letters and the other accents. It's probably one of the prettiest books I've ever seen. I actually stumbled across this in my local used bookstore and I wasn't even looking for it specifically, so it was a really cool find. But anyway, moving on to the review. So apologies in advance if I mispronounce any names, I'm really sorry, but I'll do my best. So this book takes place primarily in New York City in 1899 and follows the lives of a Jewish golem and an Arabic genie. The golem, a creature with inhuman strength made of animated clay meant to serve and protect its master, is awoken aboard a ship in transit to America from Eastern Europe. When her master dies almost immediately after her awakening, she finds herself alone and without purpose in the Jewish community of the Lower East Side of New York. She's taken under the wing of the kind and elderly Rabbi Avram Meir, the only person to recognize her for what she is, and is given the name Kava. She gets a job in a bakery and struggles to blend into human society. So the genie, a fickle being of fire, is unwittingly released from a copper flask in Little Syria in Lower Manhattan by a tinsmith named Boutro Arbeli. He's trapped in human form with no memory of how he became imprisoned and goes by the name Ahmad to pose as Arbeli's apprentice while he tries to figure out how to free himself and return to his desert home. Eventually, the golem and the genie cross paths, and the story proceeds to explore their relationship with each other, with themselves, and with others in their immigrant communities. During this journey of struggle and self-discovery, there's this sinister party working behind the scenes that threatens them both and will eventually bring them together in a final fateful confrontation. So the prose was beautiful. There were lots of very cinematic scenes that played out like a movie in my head, and it was just really well written overall. But I struggled to get through the middle part of this book. The beginning had me intrigued, but after the initial setup, I found it to be a slog until the last 2/5 or so. I found myself constantly picking it up and putting it back down, needing to break it up into lots of super short sections to make progress. You have these two really cool mythological beings stuck doing really mundane things, and I just couldn't get excited about it. I knew that this was historical fantasy going in, but I think I was hoping for a bit more magic and action than there was, at least through the middle of the book. It was a lot of the golem and the genie trying to be normal and not being happy about it, trying to hide their abilities. And there's a lot of other stuff going on outside of just the two of them. Lots of supporting characters who all have their part to play, and there are frequent POV changes. Some characters I was more intrigued by than others, such as a girl named Fadwa, who is from the genie's past before his capture 1,000 years ago, and Yehuda Shalman, the one who created the golem for the man who would have been her master before he died very quickly after awakening her. I did really like the contrast of personality and behavior between the golem and the genie. They're like two sides of the same coin, kind of reflecting the different extremes and fears and folly of humankind. The golem is careful and reserved, whereas the genie is unapologetic and passionate. The golem seeks stability and purpose, where the genie wants to be free to roam and abandon the human constructs of routine and responsibility. The cultural references and experiences were a cool learning opportunity because I know very little about Jewish or Arab culture. There were characters of all ages and from all different walks of life, schools of thought and belief. There were lots of big overarching themes through the book: friendship and loneliness, cultural identity and pride, faith or lack thereof, free will, and even knowledge versus ignorance and the pros and cons of both. So I did enjoy this book, but not in its entirety, which is really frustrating. The beginning drew me in, the middle struggled to keep my attention, but here's the thing, The ending was incredible. It was an absolute page turner. Things began to move forward in earnest. The threads of all of the characters began to intertwine and come together. I finally felt the magic and the fantasy kick in beyond just the occasional moment of interest that convinced me to keep going during the slog. And so overall thoughts, The Golem and the Jinni is really rich in culture and prose and had an intriguing premise and a killer ending. If you can push through what I personally found to be slow and uninteresting day-to-day activities accompanied by slightly depressed musings from our title characters, I really wish that I could give this 4 out of 5 stars, but because of how disappointed I was with the middle chunk of this book, I have to drop it down to 3 out of 5. But the ending was worth it, absolutely. And according to Goodreads, there is a sequel on the way, slated for 2020, next year. So I'm sort of glad that I'm late to reading this one, because it means that I won't have to wait as long to read the sequel compared to others who read it when it came out 6 years ago. If you've read this book, let me know your thoughts. Did you find it slow at all, or did you enjoy the pacing throughout? That's my biggest question, I think. I think other people maybe wouldn't think it's quite as slow or might be more interested in everything going on, but I just kind of struggled to get through it. I wish it had more elements of fantasy and action than it actually did. So thank you so much for watching my review. I hope this was helpful, and I will see you next time. Bye!